for the moms who raised us up, gave us love, and made us strong. For the praying moms who don't always know what to do, but always know who to talk to. For the hurting moms who've loved and lost, but never given up. For those who never got called mom, but who cared for us all like a mom would. For the young moms who became moms sooner than expected and gave it all they had. For the single moms who tirelessly and courageously learned how to do this on their own. For the stepmoms and the stand-in moms who rose to the occasion and loved us well. For the working moms, the stay-home moms, the cooking moms, and the takeout moms, thank you. For teaching us how to walk, how to learn, and how to make a difference. For taking care of us when you barely had enough time to take care of yourself. For comforting us when we felt alone and afraid. For lifting us up when others put us down. For the rides, the meals, the laundry, and the birthday parties. For the years, tears, laughter, and love. It's not enough, but we want to say thank you. Thank you for doing for us what we could never do for ourselves. We love you. We honor you. We remember you today. Happy Mother's Day.
Well, good morning, everybody, and happy Mother's Day. My name is Matt Braun, and to all the moms and the women in our church that are here and online, I don't think it could be said better than we love you, we honor you, we remember our moms that have gone ahead of us to be with the Lord. Now, I need to introduce someone to you that you probably don't know. This is Shelly Place. Shelly is a friend of mine, and this is her husband, Rob. And Shelly and Rob, we're talking about Shelly today, has been at our church since the beginning, which is about 18 and a half years ago, which means she put up with my preaching for 18 and a half years. She should be honored just for that this morning. But here's what you need to know about Shelly. Shelly is a teacher in the Van Wert City School Systems. What grade are you guys? What do you teach? Kindergarten. She has worked in Upstreet, I think, for years and years and years since the beginning, essentially, which is incredible. And Upstreet is our elementary age environment. And she has 4 children of her own, 1 grandson, and 1 on the way. So she is the embodiment of a mom. And the reason I wanted Shelly to come up is her faithfulness. Shelly, not her, your faithfulness to the students you serve at school. Don't be emotional, because I'll be emotional. The students you served at school, the way you love our students here. And you just need to know this. Shelly pours her life into your kids in Upstreet. And here's what we know. We all need help raising kids. And she's been back in that part of the building for so many years, helping you raise your kids, doing her little part to support you all. And to love her kids, grandkids, and be a wife to Rob. And I'm going to say something that's a little fragile, but I want to say it. In the last year and a half, 2 years, Shelly has gone through a journey with her health that has been very intense, taxing, and probably scary. I don't know if in that journey she has missed one Sunday that I know of, so I'm just going to say it, to be with your elementary age kids in our church. And that kind of dedication represents moms in the best kind of way. And I just want to say thank you for you, because you represent your life, but you also represent an incredible group of moms and women out there and online. And so to honor you, and I wish I could do this for everyone, but we can't afford to do this for everyone, we have gotten you a gift certificate to get an hour massage at a professional masseuse. Yes, that's a great one, isn't it? Now, here's what you need to know. In run through this morning early, I said, we're gonna give you a massage, and the ladies on stage said, don't say that, that's really weird. So we're not giving you a massage, we're giving you a professional massage. And we got a bunch of gift cards to Dairy Queen, McDonald's, Domino's, because we know you have kids and grandkids you still need to feed along the way. Thanks for being a great mom to your kids and the kids in our church. Love you. Yep. Yeah. Bless you guys. What I love about Shelly is the last person in the world that wants to be on stage in the bright lights is Shelly. In fact, she said, I'm gonna get you for this. I think that's what she said. But here's the thing. I really wish we could do that for every mom in the room, but we just can't. So enjoy your little plant we gave you on the way in. That's the best we got, and that's pretty cool. Hopefully it grows into something really beautiful. And I hope moms, whether you have your own kids or you've mommed other kids along the way, that you just feel honored, loved, and remembered. And for those of you that feel a little dinged in your heart because your mom's not around, I just want to celebrate the moms that came before us. This morning we have a really special service. We're going to sing a couple songs, and then you're going to get to see a baptism. Nikki Adams was baptized in first service last week, and we're going to re-show her video, so you get to celebrate that big. And then I'm starting a brand new series called Check Your Heart, and we're just so thrilled that you're with us for Mother's Day. Let's stand and let's sing our first song together.
I've seen my fair share of ups and downs. I've walked some hard miles on shaky ground. But from the place that I am standing now, it's clear to see that you were right there. All you ever been, all you ever will be, all you ever are is faithful, faithful. At least 1,000,000 times I've seen it with my own eyes. All you ever been is faithful, faithful. I've had plenty and I've seen drought. I've been on fire and I've burned out. But from the place that I am standing now, it's clear to see that you were right there with me. All you ever been, all you ever will be, all you ever are is faithful, faithful. At least 1,000,000 times I've seen it with my own eyes. All you ever been is faithful, faithful. As sure as the sun's coming up every morning, I'm sure of the promise my Father is for me. His grace, His kindness, His favor keep coming. What a faithful, faithful God. As sure as the sun, as sure
the melody, you surround me with a song of deliverance from my enemies, till all my fears are gone. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. From my mother's womb, you have chosen me. Love has called my name. I've been born again into a family. Your blood flows through my veins. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear, for I am a child of God. Oh, oh, you split the sea so I could walk right through it. My fears are drowned in perfect love. You rescued me so I would stand and sing. I am a child of God. You split the sea so I could walk right through it. You drowned my fears in perfect love. You rescued me so I would stand and sing. I am a child of God. I am a child of God. Yes, I am a child of God. For my faith, yes, I am a child of God.
Yeah. We're so grateful for a God, a Heavenly Father who loves us so much, calls us his children. Thanks for singing with us. You guys can take your seats. And like Matt said just a little bit ago, Nikki got baptized last week, and we wanted you to hear her story and watch her get baptized and celebrate with her. So check it out.
I'm Nikki Adams, and I was born and raised here in Van Wert, Ohio. Nice, loving family. To my mom and dad, Jim and Becky, my sister Cindy. You know, the one thing that was probably missing was church. We had a church, you know. We would go periodically, but I never felt like we were definitely not all in that church. We started attending LifeHouse in 2008 from an invitation from a friend, and my sister had started coming here. My kids loved it. of course, that's what kept us coming back. And we started serving. The kids started, attending all of the events and services, and we started serving at that point. And we have been kind of in since then. We had some things come up that we really leaned into God. In 2020, Landon had to have a surgery on his back, a spinal fusion, which was a 10-hour surgery. And that was one of the times where first times as a family that we really had to lean into our faith to have God help us get through that time. Then again, in 2021, my dad had a medical emergency that landed him in the hospital for several months. And we were really unsure about the future for him. And so we really had to take some time to ask God to be with us. My faith journey continued to grow as we, were more plugged into the church. I used to think I had a boring story because I didn't have an aha moment that set me on my path in my faith journey. But when it came time that somebody would say, "Hey, will you pray for me?" Or I would say, "I'll pray for you," and I actually did, I knew at that point that I was all in. Finding forgiveness in Jesus, to me, means that even when I feel like I'm falling short or I stumble, that God's grace opens the door for forgiveness. I want to thank some people that have been here with me along my faith journey. First and foremost, my husband, Anthony. He's my person, and he has been a guide for my walk in faith. Thanking my boys, Spencer, Cooper, and Landon, who, of course, kept us coming back to LifeHouse, and my parents, Jim and Becky Butler, who started attending LifeHouse because we had been coming. My sister had been coming. Then, of course, my sister Cindy Brown, who offered me an invite from those many years ago, as well as my nieces, my nephew, that I hope that I can be a role model for them to continue in their faith journey. Ashley Ferris and Jessica Gonzalez, who I sit with every Sunday in Wambaland. Meg Dickey and the leadership development group that I am in right now. All of the ladies in that group have just been awesome. And then I just want to thank LifeHouse for being here for us as a family and for me personally. It just means a lot to us that we have somewhere that we can call our church. I'm Nikki, and I'm here to proclaim that Jesus is my Lord and Savior.
Nikki, it has been such a joy getting to know you and serve alongside you in Wambaland all these years. And as you share your story, I think of the word faithfulness comes to my mind as you share about the hard with the health concerns of your family and the unknown of what that will be. And you chose to trust God and have faith through it all. And I watch you every Sunday morning, the way that you have faith and lead your team of volunteers to help them feel loved and known so that they can help the littlest of our kids feel loved and known. It's so encouraging. And not only that, but I have seen your faith grow outside the walls of this church and in the community where you live and you work. And I've seen the intentionality that you have with those relationships, the way that you love and support and point those around you to Jesus. And it is because your declaration of faith today that it is my honor and my privilege to baptize you in the name of the Father who loves you, the Son who died for you, and the Spirit who so evidently lives in you.
Nikki, I know you think you've been on camera enough, so we'll get through this, but I appreciate you being here and letting us celebrate with you, and just know we're celebrating for you and what God's doing in your life, but we're celebrating Jesus and the way he's worked in you, because like Megan said, it's so evident that God is working in your life and your heart and your family, and we're grateful that you had the courage to share that with us. We're better off for hearing your story and getting the chance to walk with you in this step. So thank you so much. Let's give Nikki one more round of applause, can we? If you are new to church or new to faith, what Nikki did by getting baptized is a step of faith that has been practiced by Jesus followers for years and years and centuries, thousands-year-old tradition. And Nikki got to be a part of that. And if you're here and you have put your trust in Jesus and you've never taken the step to get baptized, can I just invite you to consider that? Can I invite you to consider sharing your story? Because maybe you're like Nikki and you would say, I'm not sure I really have a story. And in fact, that's kind of my own story as well. But we want you to know that you do have a story. Every single person, every single one of you has a story that is worth hearing and worth telling. And we'd love to help you take that step. Man, we have a thing called Baptism Q&A that's happening Tuesday. We want to make it really simple for you to consider baptism. And Baptism Q&A is happening Tuesday at 5:30 right here at the church. It's a short 45-minute session on questions that we get about baptism, because I'm sure you've got them. We want to answer those and make this process easy for you. You can show up to Baptism Q&A on Tuesday and not follow through and get baptized. We just want you to leave with the information to say, hey, is this a good next step? And if you are a Jesus follower, I would encourage you to take that step and show up to Baptism Q&A. If you want to just let us know that you're interested in baptism, like I said, we've been helping people take that step for 18 years since the church has been in existence. And every single time that somebody's been baptized, they've said, I'm so glad that I did this. And so if you do take that step, we think you'll be really glad you did. And the other thing is, if you're here and if you give financially to this mission at LifeHouse, we want you to know that what you give towards is that. You give towards people like Nikki having an opportunity to get in a group with other people and to serve and to be a part of this and take steps in her own faith. You give towards kids and students and other adults that meet Jesus and grow because of it, and their lives are better. And so I just want to thank those of you who do give. And if you call LifeHouse home, and you've never taken that step to be a part of the mission in that way, to give, I want to invite you to do that. If you're new here, we're not asking you to give today, but if you call this place home and you've seen it impact yourself or your family or other people around you, I want to invite you to do that. It's really simple to give. The easiest way is on our app. You can set up a recurring donation schedule. That's what my wife and I do, so that when we're gone, our gifts continue, because giving is the jet fuel in this engine, and we need fuel to keep seeing things happen around here. So if you give, I want to thank you so much for the way that you're helping this mission move forward, because it's about Jesus and seeing him work in people's lives. So thank you so much. We're going to keep going with the rest of our service now. I'm going to turn things back over to our lead pastor, Matt Braun, for today's message.
Well, good morning again, and happy Mother's Day again. Somebody Somebody that's a mom asked me this morning, hey, you said you love all of us moms, Matt. Would you be willing not to turn the air conditioning down so much for Mother's Day? And I said, I didn't say I loved you that much. Anyway, hey, we are so glad you're all here today celebrating so many things. I have told you for the last couple weeks that I'm not going to talk about the surgery I had 8 or 9 weeks ago, and I've lied to you every time because then I talk about it the next time because there's only so many illustrations you have when you speak on stage as much as I do. So here's a quick story. I had surgery 8 or 9 weeks ago. About 5 days after my surgery, at 4 in the morning, my Apple Watch went off, and it said to me, "You're an AFib." Now, if you don't know what AFib is, I can't explain it well, but it's where your two halves of your heart are in different beats and your heart beats too fast. It's concerning. But I wasn't concerned because I don't have heart problems, so I clicked dismiss, because I'm a physician and I went to med school. I know things. And then about a half hour later, it went off. And then a half hour later, again, it went off. 4 times it went off. Till I finally said to my wife, Tina, I think maybe we need to go see the doctor. So, of course, we went to the family physicians here in town. They did a great job. But, yeah, sure enough, I was an AFib, and they sent me right to the emergency room. Now, when you have a knee problem or a shoulder problem, you know this, it can be really hard to get in to see anybody to get those things looked at and then eventually fixed. But when you have a heart issue, man, they're on their game immediately. It's a really big deal. And so because I had AFib, I had to, this is a well-worn path, I had to have electrocardiogram, which I'm not even sure what that is, but I had to have that. And then I also had to have an echocardiogram, which I can't explain that. And then I ultimately, a couple days or weeks later, had to have a nuclear stress test. Now, this is the one that concerned me because, what does this mean? And they said, we're going to find the gamma rays in your body. And I didn't know if they were going to give me gamma rays or take gamma rays out. And then I thought I might be the next Hulk. So I was kind of excited about that. So again, in all these tests, they shoot you up with dye. And you know what they tell you before just about every one of these tests? You might pee your pants. That's what they told me. And I'm like, oh, great. That's all I need. That didn't happen, so do not be concerned about this. I got through all of these and was cleared for heart issues. I had that one little incident. It's because of all the pain and whatever from the surgery, all the intenseness of it. But I'm totally fine. And I need you to know, listen to me. I'm fine, so I don't need to be asked by 100 people, is my heart okay? Listen to me, I'm fine. That'll help me out if you don't ask me that today. But I got to thinking about this. The intensity when you have a heart issue of doing, the exams and the tests and making sure your heart is okay and monitoring your physical heart. How do we do when it comes to monitoring our emotional heart or our spiritual heart, or what some people call our soul? How do we do with that? How are you doing with that? There was a guy named Solomon. We're told he was the wisest man in his time to walk on the planet. This is what Solomon said in a book he wrote called Proverbs. He says, above all else. Now just think about that language. Even if you're not sure you believe in God, I want you to think about this really wise man that said, above everything else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. In your translation of the scriptures, it might say it's the wellspring of life. And Solomon is making a point that what's this thing in our soul is where everything flows out of. Every thought, every action, all the words we say, it affects every part of our lives. And if one part of our soul, our wellspring of life, is contaminated, well, you know this, it's like contaminating a stream upriver. Everything downriver gets contaminated also, because the heart is the command center of our lives. Now, in modern time, you step out of the faith world for a minute, we call heart issues internal dissonance. This is a psychological term. I'm not a psychologist, but this is what happens when your soul, your emotions are all upside down. And you may see this, and people may see this in yourself as, being super defensive about certain things. People ask you, hey, what about that thing you said or did? And no, you're so defensive. It might be the reason you deny things, and people pointed stuff out and you just deny. It's why you overreact in situations. Maybe you underreact. This is what we know, that heart issues are internal dissonance. It impedes our growth relationally, spiritually, emotionally. And so to monitor our emotional heart is a huge thing. Because remember what Solomon said. Just to go back, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. This is at the core of who we are in our souls. It's vital. And so in this series over the next couple weeks, I just want to talk about 3 indicators that we can pay attention to see how our heart is. Because if you go in for a physical heart issue, man, they're going to hook you up to every machine there is in the world. But what do we do when it comes to our spiritual hearts, our emotional hearts? And how do we have a rhythm of guarding our hearts? So to get there this morning, I want to start out with a little rhyme that most of you heard, especially if you're a little bit older, as a child. And it goes like this: sticks and stones may break my bones. And you can finish it with me. But words will never hurt me. Now, here's what I know. Whoever came up with this was well-meaning. It might have been a parent, it might have been a coach or a teacher, that some young person was being bullied, and they weren't sure what else to do, so they came up with this idea of sticks and stones may break your bones. Words won't hurt you. But then maybe you found out, wait a minute, no, they do hurt you. In fact, they can break your soul. And what we find out when we open up the scriptures clearly point that out. Because you had a parent that you respected, and maybe your dad said one thing to you, and that one thing you still remember, or maybe he said it every day of your life and it's just locked in your soul, or a coach you respected, or a boss, or an ex-husband or ex-wife, they lied to you and it broke your soul. And just to get ahead of this, if you're a man in the room, and ladies, I'm just assuming you're smarter than us men in this area, if you're a man in the room or man online, you might be going, oh, Matt, come on. Let's not talk about this soft launch, emotional, how do you deal with your soul thing. It just feels so mushy. And I'm just telling you guys, there's people around you in your life that may be hoping you listen to what I'm about to say and ultimately what Jesus says about this. And it might be the hardest thing you ever do in your life. Because for men and women, students and children, the truth about this phrase is sticks and stones may break your bones, but words can really hurt you. Again, it was a dad, it was a coach, it was an ex-spouse, that they just wounded you. And you have lived with a little bit of paralyzation in your soul for a lot of years, and maybe you don't even know about it, but people around you do. It's so interesting because Solomon talked a lot about this, that when it just comes to the words that we say, he would go on to say, swords thrust or healing when it comes to your words. You can be a sword that cuts like a knife through the heart of people, or you can be healing with your words. Solomon would also say, turn away wrath or stir up anger. That's what words can do. Can you imagine a world where our words turned away wrath, as opposed to stir up just more anger in a world that's already so angry? This last one is my favorite. When it comes to words, they have the power of life and death. So if the question is, does your heart really matter? And Solomon's like, it absolutely matters. What makes all the difference? How do you monitor your heart? Because we all have gotten dinged along the way with words people have said. Now, when I was a really young pastor, I was at a different church than LifeHouse. I was trying to be a lead pastor. And we lived in a parsonage. And a parsonage is just this, a house that's paid for by the church the pastor lives in. Pro tip, they give you that so they don't have to pay you very much money, but that's a whole different subject along the way. And so we moved into this parsonage. We had 2 little kids, and there's a gigantic garden in the backyard from the previous pastor's wife. Well, Tina and I, we're not gardeners. That's not our jam. And so I grass seeded the thing over. And in about 2 months, you couldn't even hardly tell it was a garden. But I walked into church on a Sunday morning after that grass all grew. And this old fella, I'm thinking of another name, but I can't say the other name that's coming with this. He said to me, a pastor that doesn't grow a garden ain't no pastor at all. That was his words to me at 29 years old. And it's funny, when I tell you that story, that phrase and that what he said is so locked in my mind and in my soul. It makes me a little angry. It makes me a little fearful. It makes me a little nervous. I'm 55 years old. We get to do this amazing church thing, but I remember those words like they were yesterday. What do you do with that? And that's just a little small sample that doesn't even matter that much. But what do you do with that? Now, here's what's interesting. Jesus knew this would be an issue for human beings, and so he addressed it. He has this awkward conversation with a group of religious leaders called the Pharisees. If you come here very often, you probably have heard me talk about Pharisees. If you're new, Pharisees were religious leaders in the Jewish law system. And Jesus confronts them, and they confront Jesus over this idea of ceremonial washing. Because the Jewish people, washing and being clean and taking care of cleanliness things and what you eat were a huge deal. But Jesus is not having it because these guys are hypocrites. They're worried about how clean your hands are and what food you eat. They don't care how you treat people along the way. And so Jesus, he sees them doing this. And this is what Matthew, who was there, says, that Jesus called the crowd to him and said, listen and understand. If you read this at home today, you'll notice that Jesus is talking to his disciples and to these religious leaders. But he wants everybody come around, everybody come in, because I'm about to tell you something brand new that you have never heard. And this is what Jesus says. What goes into someone's mouth does not defile them. You religious leaders, and you've met religious leaders like this, you're worried about eating the right food and doing all the right things, but you got this thing backwards. You're telling people how unclean they are with God. But here's the truth. It doesn't defile them, but what comes out of their mouth, that's what defiles them. You're worried about hand washing? You should be more worried about what you're saying to them, because it's hurting them. Now, Jesus' own disciples, they're like confused and they push back. And Peter, he jumps in like Peter always does. He's like, Jesus, explain the parable to us. We're so confused. This whole mouth thing and in your body and all that stuff. What does defile even mean? And I love this. And let me just give us a little preference. I think what Jesus says, he says with a big smile on his face and a little bit of an encouragement to the tone. It's just when you just read it, in a unemotional way, it feels pretty rough. But Jesus, with a smile on his face, says, are you still so dull? I mean, ladies, have you ever said this to your husband when he cannot find his keys for the 1,000th time? Are you still so dull? Jesus asked them. I think what he's saying is, you guys have been watching me and listening to me. You see how I interact with people. Are you not paying attention? And to help them understand, it's so weird. Jesus goes into a biology lesson. He says, don't you see that whatever enters the mouth goes into the stomach and then out of the body? If you read that like it's meant to be read, it's a little bit gross. It's like, oh, the best way I can explain this is to talk about my grandsons. We had little kids back in our lives again, and I forgot about the whole diaper changing thing and how wonderful that experience is, right? And I want to be a good grandfather, and so I want to help. But here's the deal, and maybe you've experienced this. When a baby's first born and all they're getting is formula or mother's milk, when it comes to changing that nasty diaper, it ain't all that bad. It's just not terrible. It's not good, but it's not terrible, right? But then they hit that age where you start feeding them a little bit of rice, a little bit of cereal. Then you start giving them meat, and then you go to change their diaper, and it's like a T-Rex has been wearing this for the last couple hours. It's disgusting. You all know what I'm talking about? And it's like, well, yeah, and Jesus, that's my point. What goes into the mouth goes into the stomach and out the body. That's all Jesus is making the point. He's so practical. And then he goes on to say, but the things that come out of a person's mouth come from the heart, and these defile them. You're worried about the diaper. Forget the diaper. Worry about what's coming out of your mouth, what you say, because your words have the ability to defile you and make you unclean, because your words can lead you down a bad path and hurt the people around you. He goes on and he says, for out of the heart, the things stored up in you, your soul. And here's the list. And this list might be offensive, but I'm guessing all of us, whether you believe in God or not, can find a few things on this list that you go, yeah, that's not good. Evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false testimony, and slander. Where do those things come from? Not the food you eat or not how you wash your hands, what's in your heart. Because what's here is verbalized and sometimes it's acted on, and then people are wounded because your heart and your soul are the command center of all things. And if you're damaged here, you're damaged, and it damages you and other people. He goes on, these are what defile a person. This is what contaminates the stream upstream that makes everything contaminated downstream for everyone else. This is the brokenness, and if I could be so bold, of our sin in our lives. These are what defile a person. But eating with unwashed hands does not defile them. And the Pharisees have been teaching, be careful of everything you touch and everything you eat. That makes you unclean with God. Jesus says, no, it's not. It's what's in your soul that comes out of your mouth. Now, here's an important thing we learned 5 years ago with the whole COVID pandemic. And I know everybody has different thoughts on COVID and vaccines and masks. That's whatever you think about that, I don't care. That's not my point. One thing I think did come good out of COVID is we were all taught how to wash our hands again. You remember that? And you were supposed to sing happy birthday with soap and water. I think you're supposed to sing it 2 times through. And when you did that, you'd wash your hands. Now, I'm a bit of a germaphobe, so I like that part of COVID. Everything else is you can argue about at home, but the hand washing was good. And I just remembered this. Last Sunday, I was in the airport. And I walk into the men's restroom with another guy about my age, and he looks like he's a business guy on a business trip. And you know, there's that awkward thing at the urinal, whatever, right? And so he flushes the thing with the handle that everyone else has touched, you know, like 1,000 people have touched. And then he walks out of the bathroom, right past the sinks and soap, and does not wash his hands. So I decide I want to see where he's going. He walks into the Starbucks, orders a coffee, and then touches all the creamers with his pee-pee hands. I'm like, oh, dude. And I'm trying to be nicer in my old age, but I about punched him right in the throat. That is not cool. Now, here's what's interesting. We'd say, hey, COVID taught us to wash our hands. No, God said 3,000 years ago, you should wash your hands. Be careful about the things that make you sick, because they didn't have medicines and doctors like we do now, and those things can just kill you, so wash your hands. Isn't God brilliant? But it's not what defiles you. You just don't want to get physically sick. Luke records something that Jesus said. Luke was a physician who set out to write an orderly account of Jesus' life. He records Jesus in his book. Jesus says, no good tree bears bad fruit, nor does a bad tree bear good fruit. So now we're back in another biology lesson. Hang on. He goes on to say, Jesus does, each tree is recognized by its own fruit. People do not pick figs from thorn bushes or grapes from briars. In other words, apple trees produce apples, you know this. Pear trees produce pears, and so on and so forth. Jesus, what's your point? This is my point. A good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his, let's say this word together, in his heart. Oh. Yeah. And an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. There's only 1 or 2 things, according to Jesus, that are in your heart. There's evil, right? And it's the evil that's been given to you as a child, as an adult, by terrible experiences, and the evil that we've all grasped onto ourselves and brought into our own life. And then there's good, the good that was given to us by good parents, that we decided to lean into Jesus, because really we believe as Christians, and you don't have to believe this, but Christians believe Jesus is the only one that's good, and him in our life is why we get good inside us. And Jesus takes this passage and he says, for the mouths speak what the heart is full of. What comes out of your mouth originates in your heart. What this is called is a law of integrity. And this isn't moral integrity. This is just congruence, where things are consistent. It's that idea that what's in you will be consistently come out of what you say along the way. It's that deal, if you take a banana and you peel the banana, you expect banana to be inside the banana peel, because that's consistency. It's the law of integrity. Another way to say this is what comes out of you is an indicator of what's stored inside of you. And it comes out your mouth, but it represents the life you have. And here's what we know. Toxicity in our soul, in our emotions, in our heart, it leaks out. Again, what was given to you and what you chose, dark things leak out. And here's the hard part, and here's the rub for some of you. Some of you, in fact, maybe all of us, because I can jump into part of this category, we have hurtful things that are stored up in our hearts, and they come out of our mouths. Now, this little diagram where it says you, this is a circle that represents you and I. And this is the dark side of us on this side of the TV screen. These are the dark things I want to talk about. There's another side of that where God may be working. I just want to focus for a minute on the shadow side, that you have the capacity to be hurtful, that you have the capacity and I have the capacity to wound people we love, and certainly wound people we don't love. And maybe for you, it's not saying hurtful things. It's more in the world of being critical and saying critical things over and over. In fact, you know people that have a PhD in being critical to people and things and government and churches and school systems and city, organizations. We're just critical. And that's all that comes out of their mouth. And they drive you crazy because it wears you out, and you don't want to go to Thanksgiving dinner because Uncle Joe is just going to be so critical. For others, what comes out of their mouth are deceitful things. And this is huge, because when people experience you, they're like, okay, don't tell him I told you this, but he's deceitful. You can't trust him. He's always, dodging and moving, because he doesn't want you to find out what he's actually doing. And this is all true of us in some way, but we're complicated people, so there's just layers to this. This may be the outside layer, this may be the candy shell and the M&M, but you break that and you dig a little deeper, and when you realize that person's hurtful or you're hurtful, it's because they're angry. And it may not even be because they're angry, it's because they're sad. They're just so angry and hurtful. Maybe they're sad and they've never dug into the sadness in their heart. And then they get provoked. And you've seen this in everyone along the way, but some people would just have this knack. They get provoked. It's in line, it's in traffic. They don't get what they want at the restaurant, and they blow up. And like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And people are embarrassed for you. Sometimes that anger and sadness, they come from loss. And I'm not sure, Mother's Day is great for everybody because it makes some people think about loss. I've lost someone I love. I've lost a friend. I've lost a job. I've lost a marriage. I've lost a child somewhere along the way. I mean, they're still alive, but I've lost my children because we're not in a relationship anymore. And see, the thing is, people experience you as being hurtful. But what if it's not because you've not dug down into the loss and anger and sadness in your soul, but what comes out is so hurtful when you speak and act. Maybe for you or people it's stored up envy and jealousy. I mean, it's like, I want that. I deserve that more than she deserves that. My brother shouldn't be more successful than I am. I want, I'm jealous. You don't say it, but that's how you may feel. But really, the root of that is I'm just discontent. I've not found a source of contentment. And by the way, just so you know, Jesus promised that if we would put him in the lordship seat of our lives, he'd be our king. He would bring us contentment. But now I'm just critical. No, you're jealous and you're envious and you're discontent. The deceitful part, maybe it's deceit, but maybe it's shame and guilt. I'm deceiving you because I'm shamed in my life. Things I've done in secret, things that people know about, I feel all this guilt and all this shame. And just so you know, the difference between shame and guilt is that guilt causes me to go, you know what, I've done some things wrong. Shame says you're just wrong as a person. And those are two very unhealthy differences in that. But shame and guilt, they cause us to cover up and hide because we're fearful. What if they find out? What if my wife finds out what I did or am I thinking about doing? And I debated saying the next thing I'm about to say all weekend, but I decided to say it anyway because I usually do. I wondered if we would have dug this out. Oh, back up a minute, guys. I wondered for guys that do what I do, pastors, priests, ministers, leaders in the church that aren't paid to do it, church people in general. I wondered if we decided to dig the fear out of our heart and soul. Early on, when we started thinking about some things that are pretty ugly, if some pastors and priests and church leaders wouldn't do some of the ugly, ugly, ugly things that they've done. But what if fear, guilt, and shame cause us to do something that hurt people? And it's hurt the church and it's hurt the kingdom of God. These are why words are so important. This is why you've been at a ball game and you've watched parents absolutely lose their mind with 8-year-olds playing baseball over a call that the ref made or a coach made. And you're like, dude, what are you doing? And you thought to yourself, can you see yourself? Can you hear yourself? It's why when people put stuff on Facebook that's so ridiculous, you really want to call them up and go, can you see what you're saying on Facebook? It's embarrassing. Forget about everybody else. You're embarrassing you. And you know this because What comes out of you is an indicator of what's stored inside of you. It wasn't by chance she or he said that. It's stuff that's in your heart. That's why you got to monitor your words so you can monitor your heart when it's critical, deceitful, or hurtful things. I would just suggest, if this is important to you, which I hope it is, you become curious and you keep asking yourself when things pop out, hey, what am I storing in my heart? And here's a courageous move that I would suggest you do. Ask somebody else you can trust, that has integrity, that you respect, that you see them living their lives in a direction that you would like to live your life in. Hey, do you see something that's coming out of me that is a little ugly or toxic or nasty? And I don't want to just chalk it up to I'm tired or I'm hungry or traffic was bad. I want to try and connect the dots to what's coming out of my mouth and my actions to what's happened to me in my past and my heart, the deep things. And I want to root that out. If you've ever gone to counseling, and I go to counseling, I go to a Jesus-centered counselor, which I would suggest you do if you go to counseling. That's just my suggestion. When I'm talking to my counselor, she'll say, hey, you ought to pay attention to that. I'll say something and she'll say, you ought to pay attention to that. You ought to pay attention to that. Because she can see something that I can't see. You should pay attention to that, because when you pay attention to that, you start to see the heart issues, the internal dissidence. You see the things that are coming out of you that are hurtful, but maybe it's centered more around loss or sadness. You start to see criticalness in your life, but it's because really at the root of your heart, you're just discontent because you haven't let God possibly be enough. You see the deceitfulness, but really you're just afraid that people are gonna find out what you don't want them to find out. And root that out. Years ago at LifeHouse, I don't let this happen very often, just so you know, but I was speaking about 3 or 4 weeks about sexual integrity at our church. And I would said some goofy, fun stuff along the way, which if you hang around here, I just say some stuff sometimes because it entertains me if no one else. And after one of the services, a person came up to me and just lay waste to what I had said in the service. She was ticked and she let me know it. And like I said, usually I don't let people talk to me that way, but I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna listen, because something weird is going on here. I don't know why you're overreacting to the level you're overreacting about this right now. And I asked some other people, hey, what'd you think about what I said? And, it was fine, but just lit her up. And about a month later, it kind of came out, she kind of had to confess that she was living in a relationship that was outside the context of her marriage, a sinful relationship, if you will. And I'm like, oh, that's where that thing came out of. Because what's on the inside comes out somehow. Now, when we think about the other side of this graph, we think about this word cognitive restructuring. This is another psychological word that people use in that realm to try and figure out how to replace all the ugliness with what is healthy. Now again, this is so interesting to me because this idea of cognitive restructuring was invented somewhere around the 1960s, and it's good, it's probably good science, but 2,000 years before this was figured out in the counseling community, the Apostle Paul wrote these words in a letter to some Roman Christians. And look what he says. You may have heard this before. Don't copy the behavior and the customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you, and I love this so much, the way you think. Another version is by renewing your minds. Paul said there's a way to be free, but you have to be free, you have to be transformed, which is the same thing as cognitive restructuring. You see things the right way and things change as you go forward. The stuff lodged in your heart that you've looked like is, hey, that's okay in my heart. That's acceptable. I'm ignoring that. No, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm gonna renew my mind and go, I'm gonna address the darkness, the sin, the ugly in my mind. And just so you know, Jesus died on the cross so he could draw that out of us. It's the renewing of your mind. But to get you on that path, it takes some work, because you probably are gonna need to pay attention and hear yourself and the words that come out of your mind. Literally, hear yourself. And then ask people you trust, what do you hear me saying? They're clues, they're a doorway to what's in here. It's so interesting for me when I hear people, they come into my office and they're like, hey, we're in trouble marriage-wise. Well, tell me why you're in trouble marriage-wise. And the rhetoric when people are ready to give up on a marriage, well, she does this and this and this and this, and it's 100 things. Do you hear yourself? What are you doing wrong? Well, I don't put the toilet seat down. I guess that's my big issue. Really? That's all there is. It's all her fault. Will you pay attention? When I see people who love our church, but don't want to give to our church or serve at our church or invite people, they just want to come and take in the show, I go, listen, do you hear yourself when you say, I don't have time, I don't have money, I don't have whatever? You're just making excuses. You need to hear yourself. Do you hear yourself the way you talk to your children and your spouse? And as you hear yourself, hear your own words, would you be willing to look inside and deal with your feelings? And I know this feels mushy, but men and women, our feelings betray us all the time. And our feelings are connected to our words. There's this thing called the feeling wheel that maybe you say, well, I'm just frustrated. The word frustration is linked in the feeling wheel to anger. You're not frustrated, you're angry. So God, I got all this junk of feelings in me, of vengeance and unforgiveness and bitterness, and the list just goes on. And you can have, a little bit of it, or you can have a whole lot of it. I'm paying attention because I want to see if there's some yuck in there. And then ultimately, let God restore you, renewing your mind and your thoughts. Here's a beautiful way to do this. Open your Bibles up to Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7. It's where Jesus says the Sermon on the Mount. And it's brutal because he talks about how to live a perfect life. But it is a life of beauty and honoring other people and honoring God. And every time I read Matthew 5, 6, and 7, I just think that's beautiful. And I'm not sure all that's in me. So God, I want to forgive. I want to pray for my enemies. If you're a person that I hope they just get what's coming to them. I hope they get what they deserve. And you read Jesus saying, now I want you to pray for your enemies. I want you to lay down your life for people that are hard to love along the way. It starts to renew my mind and renew my soul. But here's a warning. Heart work, and this is what this is. Heart work is hard work. It's painful because sometimes I got to look at the worst parts of me and let God change that. But you owe it to yourself, and you owe it to the people you love. And on this Mother's Day, I can't think of a better gift to give your mom or your wife, your grandma, than to say, I'm going to start working on my heart. Because above all else, guard your heart. For everything you do flows from it. So to wrap up this day together, I want to talk about my dad. I want to talk about my mom really quick. My dad was the greatest man I've ever met. You've heard me say that. My dad was raised in a family where they were alcoholics, in their own way abusive, unfaithful. His parents were to each other in their marriage. The short story is my grandfather shot a gun at my grandmother. She ran out the door. And my dad grew up in that. With a heart full of yuck, a heart full of toxicity, because that's all he knew growing up. When he was 20 years old, he gave his life to Jesus in college at a church that somebody invited him to. It's why you got to keep inviting people to church. He gave his life to Jesus, and then he met my mom. My mom, on the other hand, was raised in a household where her parents loved her intensely and loved each other, loved Jesus, and modeled that kind of love. They were not perfect. My dad and my mom had heart work to do. But I tell you that because when my dad met Jesus, he saw a way to live differently, to renew his mind around who his king was. Jesus was the most important person in my dad's life. The second most important person was my mom. Because every day of my life, my mom showed my dad how to love and how to talk and how to get your emotions out and how to identify what's wrong. And together they created this beautiful life. My dad, who should have been a disaster, and my mom, who lived with Jesus a life that was life-giving. And if you're my mom, be a life giver. If your life looks like her life, be a life giver to other people. But if you're like my dad was growing up, Be somebody that does the hard heart work of going, all right, what's inside of me? Because I love my kids too much, and I love my future grandkids too much, and I love my king too much to remain in a place of toxicity, of hurtful and deceitful and critical. I just hope we can live that way. Can you imagine for some of you, if your parents decided to do that, how much better your childhood might have been? Can you imagine whether you're 15, 55, or 85, if you just decided, whatever time I have left, I want you to imagine this. I'm gonna live a life where I just dig out that stuff in me that is just not what God wants. And I'm gonna pay attention to my words, my feelings, and then I'm gonna let God renew my mind. It could make a world of difference. And I just wanna say this, for every mom that's helped someone like my dad find a better life in Jesus, for every mom that's done that for her kids and her grandkids, for the kids around her, we say thank you. And our gift to you today, I hope this is our gift to Jesus, to the moms in the room, our kids, is I'm gonna pay attention to what's stored up inside me. And I'm gonna start by listening to the words that come out of my mouth and ask God to get in the middle of it. And He loves you so much. He loves you so much. He wants to do that with you and for you by renewing your mind. And we love you too. Let me pray for you. Heavenly Father, thank you for these words that just are so clarifying, at least to me, about what can get stored up in my heart. Lord, I don't want any yuck in my life, in my heart, so help me to pay attention. This is easier to say than to do, but give us all the strength, Jesus, by your Spirit and your word to live this out. And thanks for being patient when we don't get it right. And thanks for being the one that conquered the cross to forgive us for it all. We love you. We're grateful for you, and we're grateful for the moms in the room and online. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Happy Mother's Day, everybody. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next week. You're dismissed.